us for dinner.
Yeah, that's right. This is happening. I know, it's crazy. The world just maybe I should move this closer. Yeah, the world doesn't stay the same for a day. Everything changes. Suddenly the Flat Five podcast is now video. Get over it, okay? Stop freaking out. I still love you though. There's a fruit fly in my room. Oh, did I just catch that? Oh my god. I am Chris Tucker in Rush Hour. No, I didn't catch it. So, Flat Five podcast, video, YouTube. What's up? Everybody that's listening right now, you're only getting the audio version. So thanks for listening on Spotify and Apple or whatever platform you use. But you could head over to YouTube as well. Gonna plug my TikTok and Instagram under the name Ian F Music. If I had editing skills, it would pop up right there, but I don't. In this episode, to actually get to a point, I'm talking about the song End of Me by Billy Talent. And because your boy doesn't have a working brain, I got to look at my notes, because I'm not that good of a music reviewer yet. So, yeah, you're going to see me looking at the screen every now and again. But the Saga Boys have released some music, and they are promoting their new album, Crisis of Faith, that's coming out. Am I excited? Absolutely. Am I hoping that the next decade of music is just like dedicated to, like actual live studio performance and, maybe rock has a comeback? Possibly. Who knows? Either way, I'm just happy to be here, man. Just, enjoying music as it comes through. This song is pretty good. There are some things that I love. There's a lot of things that have me coming back and listening to the music. Some things like the melodies stuck in my head as usual, but I'm just a sucker for Ben Kowalowicz. Shout out to Benny boy. And there are some things that I don't like. Maybe not exactly in terms of the actual performance of the music or, what they're playing. It's just a little small things, and actually around the marketing side of it as well. And so, I'm looking at the way they're promoting this song, and I'm on Instagram, and you see that Billy Talent has one of their first ever features. I think this is the first feature that Billy Talent has ever had on a song. And the way that they promote it is by saying Billy Talent, End of Me, featuring, and then it ends up being Rivers Cuomo, whatever the Weezer guy, with the last letter of his first and last name. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, I get it, but you have an audience that's been with you since day one that is also online. You could easily do a far better job of getting people excited by just talking about this is your first ever feature on a song ever. That, hey, Billy Talent may be a now like 30-year-old band, or maybe not 30, but like 23, 24 years, right? If we're talking back to when Billy Talent was Pez, right? This is the first ever official feature you've ever had on a song. To my recollection, the only other time they've performed with other artists on something that's like recorded was with Serena Ryder doing the song Stand Up and Run for the Junos. And so you could have just really drove the point home that's like, hey, we've been here for some time. We've seen culture and fashion and music and aesthetics, change 3 times over, almost 4 times. We're still keeping it fresh for our audience and how we sort of, get your attention to listen to music. That action, we're still keeping that fresh. But instead, it was this little bit of like, kind of like not necessarily wordplay, but like, oh, guess the artist. It's like, you do that with the second guy, the guy that you've already done this with, or something to that effect. I don't know. Maybe you guys agree, maybe not. I just thought it was just a little bit weird. But the other thing that bothers me is the album artwork. It sucks, man. It's no fun. It's like really lackluster. There's nothing about the artwork that is exciting. And the reason why I say this is because of what has been released before. If anybody's been paying attention to Billy Talent's music and what they've been doing, they've released Forgiveness, they've released Reckless Paradise, maybe one other track that I'm forgetting at the moment, and this is why I said I make notes so that I can look, right? Because though I'm 21, I have the brain of a 60-year-old. So they've released Forgiveness, they've released Reckless Paradise, now End of Me. And the artwork for Reckless Paradise is okay. End of Me, like a solid 3. But Forgiveness is actually really cool because it's original. It is a hand-drawn sort of painting or artwork of the UFC star Rose Namajunas. And they had this whole concept built when they released that, and I was like, damn, okay. Billy Talent is sort of telling me, at least subjectively, what I'm thinking is that, hey, as Billy Talent, we've released 3 albums basically under the same name, right? We've got Billy Talent 2, Billy Talent 3. Then they released Dead Silence, a couple singles here and there, Kingdom of Zod, whatnot. They're very good at like, okay, we've developed our sound. We've constantly made music that, sort of pushes our realm a little bit. It sort of makes it a little bit bigger. It's not like they're drastically changing their sound, but there are some new ideas between Billy Talent 1 and 3, right? Especially on Billy Talent 3. Then you've got Dead Silence, which is like them just mastering their craft, right? Songs like Viking Death March and Surprise, Surprise and all that. Kingdom of Zod, etc., etc. Afraid of Heights, to me, was a little bit of a dud. Some of the songs felt like B-sides. Other songs felt like, this could have been like the highlights of Afraid of Heights were B-sides to Dead Silence, to that record. And so, after Afraid of Heights, it's like, okay, how long can we do this? And then they come up with a tune like Forgiveness. Obviously, I'm jumping ahead 4 years later from 2016 to 2020. But they came up with a song like Forgiveness, which is Forgiveness Parts 1 and 2, which is a good, Billy Talent tune. It's, again, them sort of expanding their horizons a bit, but it still sounds like Billy Talent. And then it completely changes. And when I heard that change, not even watching the music video yet, just actually listening to the song, so I'm not actually, distracted from what I'm hearing, I was like, okay, they understand that they've done a pretty good job of establishing themselves over at least 2 decades, over the course of 5 albums. Now they're starting to explore. And that, to me, gives me a ton of excitement because that says we've done what we needed to do. We've grown our audience. They're a cult following. We'll sell out stadiums. We'll continue to, crush it at Rock am Ring and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we can start to incorporate ideas that, maybe Billy Talent said 10 years ago, oh my God, it would have been so fun to have a saxophone solo in a song, but they couldn't do it because they were still trying to establish themselves. Now they're at a point where they've been here for some time. They haven't vanished, right? They weren't playing into some sort of cultural or sonic like fad, right? They didn't sound exactly like pop punk in the 2000s. They sounded like their own style of punk. They didn't sound like rock in 2006 or 2007 with Billy Talent 2. It was their own sound. They've constantly paved their own lane. And so they've established themselves and cemented themselves as one of Canada's most recent greatest bands, right? With Forgiveness 2, the second half, with the saxophone solo, it's like, yes, they're doing new things. Then I listened to Reckless Paradise, and it's like, okay, again, this is like the Billy Talent thing, and it's good. It's definitely better than other rock music that has been out, right? And I mean rock, not like pop rock. I mean like legitimate rock bands. It's definitely better, but I want something that is as exciting as Forgiveness 2. And then they come out with End of Me, which I think achieves that to like a B plus, like A minus level. And what I think is hilarious is that there's a ton of Billy Talent fans that are like, oh, it's the same thing. Billy Talent hasn't changed and blah, 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 blah. I can't stand this song and I don't get it and da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, maybe Reckless Paradise, that analysis or assessment or that argument makes sense because I totally agree. But I don't think that's the case with this tune. I think this tune is Billy Talent doing something of a a more bright and softer tone. There's still all the good qualities that makes Billy Talent a great band. Just looking at instrumentation and delivery and studio performance and all that. Again, the feature is a cool thing. It's never been done before in their discography. So that to me is already a deviation. A band that has been so comfortable in just making music as for people, or until Aaron, became ill and wasn't able to perform. It was a group of 5, right? You can include Eric Ratz as the producer and yada, yada, yada. But in terms of their public image, it's always been 4 guys: the bassist, drummer, singer, and guitarist, right? Oh, the alarm telling me to be recording this podcast, which I'm already doing. Look at that, I'm ahead of schedule. So I should shut my ringer off. Yeah, right. So they've been so comfortable with recording and writing and performing as for people. Now they finally introduce a feature that to me is for musicians that act as a unit, saying, hey, let's include new ideas, right? Which is what they did. Rivers has a solid verse and what I believe is a guitar solo after Ian Desa's guitar solo. That's a pretty good chunk of time for their first feature. It's not like, he's coming in on the last chorus and adding some vocal harmonies and whatnot, right? That's not the case. But again, we still have, young people that are fans of Billy Talent that are acting like old heads, complaining that this is the same thing, but haven't taken enough of an analysis, to kind of give the reasoning, so they just look goofy. And that's the issue that I have surrounding this tune and all of that, bunched together. This isn't entirely a copy and paste or rinse, wash, repeat of Billy Talent songs. You've got everything you need to get the song to an average level. And then the way it's performed and what they're playing in terms of like chord structures, in terms of tempo and rhythm, that's all at least new enough to personally to satisfy me, right? I'm confused as to why there is this constant harp on them. And I get I can sound like a fanboy. That's entirely possible. I've been listening to this band since 2008. We're talking playing the old GameCube NHL game where you could shrink the guys but give them bobbleheads, and I'm listening to Red Flag while shooting on the net, in the video game. We're talking a long time ago, at least in music history. But there's this constant harp with this band that's they're doing the same thing, but it's that's not actually the case for the majority of what's been coming out. The only song that kind of falls into that copy paste category is Reckless Paradise. I don't think End of Me falls in that category at all. And so you've got Ratbeard on drums, sounds tight as always, right? Ian Desa's riffs plural are always spot on. And John Gallant is always just doing exactly what he needs to do, never oversimplifying or overcomplicating things. What I think is actually funny, if people want to talk about, a sort of musical injustice or something, we should be talking about how Ian Desa and John Gallant are barely appreciated in any musician world that involves wood and strings. They are fantastic musicians that barely get any credit amongst musicians. And they check off all the boxes and meet all the requirements to be highly praised and admired globally. You could maybe argue that they're Canadian and blah, 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 but I don't know if that argument holds water in this specific context. Ian Desa is the perfect example, or one of the best, at least alive, that will play rhythm and lead guitar at the same time while singing harmonies with somebody like Ben Kowalowicz, who's a fantastic frontman, but his vocal range is really high. So Ian Desa is working like a dog when he is playing Billy Talent tunes. Just go and listen to anything that they've released from, you could even include Pez in this argument or this idea, whatever you'd like to call it. Maybe we'll call it an argument. You can even include Pez as that idea of Ian Dessa working, right? And John Gallant in the pocket, never missing a beat. Half the time the riffs that he's playing is pretty much matching the exact speed and amount of notes as Ian Dessa is. No credit. And I think that's on one hand it is what it is. On the other hand, it's like, damn, if you guys are looking for a new idol, right, or a new musician to admire, and you yourself play bass or guitar, look at Billy Talent, man. Just look at Billy Talent. Everything you need is right there. And so now, to get away from the less positive, slightly pessimistic view of everything surrounding this song, the positive things are not as high in amount, but they are actually very good, right? So one of the things that I always like that musicians do is when they leave little like Easter eggs in their actual recording, in their studio recording. And so at the 1 minute and 0.02 second mark, there's a little like ha sound. So that, they're playing through the riff and then you hear a ha. That is either from Ben or Rivers. And it's little things like that to me that makes it feel like I'm in studio and I'm there listening with them. And then to talk about how it sounds like they were in studio, this recording of End of Me, it doesn't really sound like it has a ton of sort of studio gloss and polish. It's not raw. It doesn't sound like a demo. If you were to find these two worlds where the left side is like the demo, raw, uncut version, and the right side is the most glossy and polished version of a song, it's sort of like center left. Like it's a little bit raw side, but I think that plays to their benefit as a sort of counter to everything that's been released in the music industry that involves a drum set and a guitar and bass and lead vocals across genres in the last, let's say, like 2017, like since 2017, right? So that plays to their benefit. That just shows the high quality musicianship and performance ability that you'll get listening to Billy Talent. And I've seen them twice live. I wish it could be more times, right? I've definitely missed a couple concerts, even though they're, from my area. They're from my city, my province. But both times that I've seen them live, they've been nothing but spot on. You couldn't catch a mistake because it doesn't exist. They are genuinely some of the best performers of their own music. And that's an important thing I think people could have a better distinction of. There are musicians that are really good at genuinely performing anything. They can take a song and turn it into their own. And it's like, look, this one artist took, like, for argument's sake, you could say, maybe, for lack of, for an artist, that the first artist that comes to mind is maybe somebody like John Mayer, right? They have their own sound. They have their own style. Why is my camera bleeping? What is going on? Is that my battery's dying? I don't know, guys. See, we're trying something new right now. Trying to expand the podcast. And my camera is tweaking. So I'm just going to keep going. And if the camera dies, well, I guess sucks for the YouTubers. Oh, maybe not. Now it stopped. Wow. Intro to how this whole recording thing goes. It's very much just like trial and error because I am a unit of one. But to bring the conversation back to my point, there are a lot of musicians that can take other people's songs and turn it into their own, and now they've made it their own thing. A great example actually is the Johnny Cash cover of "Hurt" by 9 Inch Nails. That's a fantastic example, right? There are musicians that can do that pretty much across the board. But then there are musicians that go and write songs in studio and perform them in studio and do a really good job of that in studio. And then when they're on stage, they don't have either as much confidence or conviction or it was just a little bit too difficult during the recording process, so now the delivery is kind of weak. Billy Talent is not that. What you get live is what you will get in studio. There's a very small argument that you could make that maybe they could do a little bit different live, but that might not make everybody happy, right? If that's what they're going for. The one thing that they do well is record their songs really well and then perform them genuinely perfectly in comparison to the record, which is what everybody compares to, right? They're like, oh my God, like they sucked live, right? Because you're so used to hearing them on record, on Spotify or a CD or whatever the case is, that you have this expectation going into the show, and then it doesn't meet that, and you're like, ah, oh, damn, like that was balls. But Billy Talent is not that. So as you're listening to this song, what you're hearing, if you were to go buy a ticket and see Billy Talent perform this tune, this is exactly what you would get. Now, they released this song last Friday, which was September, I want to say like 10th. Yeah, it was September 10th. It is now September 14th on a Tuesday. It's Tuesday, ain't it? So now they've started promoting the release of their new album, Crisis of Faith. And I'm just like, okay, you know, you've given me the album art. It looks like Reckless Paradise. You've given me a wide array of tunes. You've got your standard Billy Talent song. You've got the feature with End of Me. You've got Forgiveness 1 and 2. And now I'm going to open up Spotify and take a look at their catalog, because there is something that I'm missing from their recent releases that's just driving me. Oh, I Beg to Differ. That's the tune. That one's great as well. 2020 release back in, I think it was towards the end of the year, right? That's another great song as well. There isn't as much sort of cohesiveness with the visuals as I would hope for, especially when you've come up with a song like Forgiveness. I'm 99% sure that came first. So again, we're going to fact check here with Spotify to make sure, if my computer will cooperate with me. I have one of those really bad keyboards where the track pad is just terrible. It's just balls. So yes, Forgiveness 1 and 2 was the first release. Think about how that song will make everybody respond as the first release. It's like, okay, this is pretty much a brand new direction from Billy Talent. Now, it's sort of hoping that the theme of the album is sort of like, or not it, but I was sort of hoping that the theme of the album was kind of around this. It's like, we have matured well, we have aged well, like, I don't know, cheese or wine or whatever fancy people do. I'm lactose intolerant and whatever, so I can't really appreciate it, but that's what I was hoping for. Then you have a tune like Reckless Paradise, where it's, okay, this is Billy Talent. Then you have a tune like Beg to Differ, and it's like, okay, you know, it's pretty good. And then End of Me is nice as well. It's a new direction. It's not as maybe experimental or exciting as Forgiveness, right? Again, thinking from the perspective of Billy Talent moving in a new direction. And so I'm curious to see what the entire listening experience of Crisis of Faith will be. I'm hoping it is on the more experimental side. I'd rather have Billy Talent take their 6th LP, their 6th studio album, and make a mistake, because I have 4 fantastic albums and 1 decent album, right? If they were to make this sort of trial and error on Afraid of Heights, that would have been far more exciting, because it could have been, hey, pardon me again. It could have been, hey, you know, back in 2016, we've done Dead Silence and Billy Talent 1 to 3 over the past like decade and a half, almost 2 decades at that point, right? Here is a record of us genuinely taking a brand new approach to our music writing and how we create a product and an art as a band. And if that record stunk like so bad, Then COVID hits, and you could say, yeah, sorry about that last one, guys. Didn't really work out as much. Here's an album, that's it's just a bunch of like B-sides and, kind of win the people over again. I would have had that. I would have preferred that. And again, I'm speaking with, hindsight on my side, right? I'm speaking with history and be like, it would have been better to do that. It's so much easier to say that now that it's happened, right? But I'm hoping that Crisis of Faith is an experiment from the band, right? They're getting old. We're seeing all of our greats around us starting to wither away. Somehow Betty White is alive. She drinks the blood of children. I don't care what people say. She drinks the blood of children. And so that is my 2 cents, more equivalent to 2 loonies on End of Me by Billy Talent and the Crisis of Faith album. So go listen to more episodes on the Flat 5 podcast, because if you've been listening this far, you got time on your hands. Of course, more interviews, more episodes always on the way. All my social media is under the name ENF Music. Drum covers coming on the YouTube channel as well. Gonna end the Logic session right here, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.